There's a will, there's a way, there's a way, there's a way.
Welcome to Blue Collar Elk Hunting, brought to you by ElkBros.com, with your host Gilbert Ornelas and elk hunting coach Joe Giglia. You want to hunt elk, and they live to hunt elk. Their goal is to share with you what they have learned grinding it out for over 35 seasons, doing what they love. So come on into camp and set a spell. Welcome to Blue Collar Elk Hunters.
Welcome, everyone, to part 3 of Solo with Coach. Look, I really hope you're enjoying this series, but before we get started, I really want to talk about how much life in some ways is a lot like elk hunting. If you're not adaptable, then you're going to struggle. And often the best plans, man, they can just go to crap. Why? Because elk hunting is just like life. It's dynamic. You know, if you missed our last episode, you didn't miss it because it didn't happen. And to explain why that didn't come out, myself, Gil, Guy Duplantier, Luis Gonzalez, and one of our newest ElkBros coaches, Dallin Staker, we got together at the Mile High Expo to record a live session. And let me just tell you, it was an incredible session. We got a chance to introduce Dallin. We had a blast just doing what we do for about an hour and a half. And, you know, when technology works, it's great. When it doesn't, so I had to call Guy because we use Guy's equipment. And when I went in to put the show on, put it live, and I checked it, out of that hour and a half, we had 27 minutes. And so I texted Guy and said, man, we only have 27 minutes. He's like, crap, man, dang it. He said, well, out of, I think he said something like 34, 38 episodes that he recorded at the Mile High, he said, it looks like we only had one failure. That's pretty good. And I'm like, yeah, unless you're the one that it failed on. So, look, what we had was too good not to play what we have, because I really want you to, you know, the only thing that I have problems when I do these whole solo pieces is that it's just me, and I really enjoy being with the crew, with the guys. That's kind of why we do this. I've been doing this series to try to just focus on some things and to help you guys out and to get you prepared, but I really miss the crew. So what's so great about this piece that we have is that it's us doing our thing, and, you know, having a good time. I'm going to try to eliminate a lot of the background noise here in production because, man, was it noisy. Hopefully I can eliminate some of that. But I really want you to, because I know with us a big part is our camaraderie. And we don't like each other very much when we get together. We seem like we have a good time. So what I'm going to do is, up first, live from the Mile High Expo with the ElkBros. Enjoy this.
ElkBros Mile High Hunting Fish Expo. We're here with WWJGD's in the house. Big man with the golden voice and Western Contours podcast owner, Guy Duplantier. We got the leader of the Venezuelan Mafia in the house today. Here in Denver, Colorado, my brother, Luis Gonzalez. And brand new coach, Mr. Dallin Staker in the house. How's it going, Dallin?
Welcome, Dallin, man.
It's good, thanks.
Awesome, man. Hey, you guys can hear, we got a little bit of background noise, but we're here live from the Mile High Hunting Fish Expo. It has been absolutely off the chain. We're all wore out, but man, what an awesome time. Joe's been giving seminars. We've been blowing elk calls left and right. It's been fantastic, huh, Joe?
Yeah, well, okay. So we've got, you know, this is the first time we've ever had Luis at an expo, right?
Yes, sir.
And for me, you know, that's like, that made the deal, you know. We always have guys like, you know, steadfast backbone, okay, so, you know.
Always. My brother from another mother.
Hey, but he knows that he can call me, just like I told him over there, right? He asks me a question, I just stare at him.
Definitely.
I'm like, I thought, because I looked at him earlier, and he is getting up in age, right? So, I thought he was just,
Like a fine wine, you son of a.
Yeah.
I thought he was
This is
zoning
a
out.
family podcast guy. Here you go. He held back.
Hey, I grabbed it. I grabbed it.
I'm
I
super
thought he
proud
was-
of you too,
I thought
brother.
he was zoning out on me. He's like staring at me. I'm like, bro, did you hear me? I mean, honestly, at times, he has that where it can hit him and he just kind of goes out.
Yeah. He gets that blank 1,000-yard stare
Yeah,
at you.
yeah.
Yeah.
And,
for sure.
and something's getting ready to happen.
sure.
Either he's going to blow one way or he's
Yeah. Look,
Watch the verbiage you use with me. I'll blow shit.
not even a blow pop, Joe. He's one of the only brothers and one of our only coaches that when I got here, he gave me a kiss, man. I'm like, wow, I must rate really high because he kissed me right on my cheek, dude.
Yeah,
I said,
I'll pass on that.
Give you
yeah,
a kiss as soon as
Thanks
I
It's
come
my
in,
bro.
right?
Yeah, it's my brothers, man. It's my brothers.
absolutely. Joe and I have talked about this. He is a huge part of what we do and how successful we've been. God never misses an opportunity to pimp us on his own
He is an
podcast.
elk bro.
He is
period.
an elk bro, for
Plain
sure.
and simple.
Well, Dallin, when he heard the kiss thing, he kind of scooched over
you see how he backed
further
up
away
there,
on the
man?
couch there.
Because he don't like kissing, but when he heard blow, he scooted this way.
He scooted back down.
He got all next to Luis on the blow part.
Oh, no. Listen, I want to introduce my brother properly. Dallin, give us a little background on what you do for a living and how you got met up with Joe here.
So I'm a wildlife specialist out of Colorado.
It's a broad spectrum. Tell us what wildlife specialist means,
yeah.
brother.
So really the old term would probably be like government hunter.
Got you, man.
Can't go too much into it being G work, but
Yes, sir.
but it's just taking care of predator issues with mainly livestock, but there's some human health and
Conservation.
safety.
Conservation.
Yeah, it's a little bit of that. Definitely a big part of it, but it's mainly helping.
It's managed.
Yeah, it's
Managing our
mainly
resources.
helping guys with livestock
Yes, sir.
issues.
You've been busy lately, then, brother.
Definitely,
Yeah.
brother.
Yeah.
Especially here
It's
in Colorado.
Getting busier with lambs and calves hitting the ground. But I got hooked up with Joe and ElkBros from it was Hunt Wars.
Oh,
Yep.
awesome. Fantastic, man.
Yeah.
And so you went through our courses and everything like that.
Oh, yeah.
You feel like it helped you further
Definitely.
on your calling and,
Yeah.
and your, overall elk
Yeah.
IQ.
I felt like I was pretty good at elk calling, but going through the course, you pick little things that you may have not realized that you were doing wrong, and just tweaked it. But I mean, I think I gathered a lot from it.
Awesome, man. Well, we're looking forward. Dallin will be coaching with us this year in camp. We're looking forward to having him in camp with us. Been fantastic getting to know him the past couple of days. Guy, let us know what's going on over at the Western Fly Company, man.
Hold on a second. So Dallin's a perfect fit, right? And I always judge the new coaches. I'm a judging a-hole. And, Dallin walks up and we introduce ourselves, and I give him a little guff right off the bat, and he laughs and then just kind of and I'm like, hell yeah, this is my brother right here already.
Yeah.
Like, because some guys will give you that look like
Yeah, the 1,000-yard stare back. Yeah.
the little whimper stare.
The little, yeah. Their lip poked out.
And Dallin fell right in. So, man, I'm
It's just like being with a bunch of guys out there.
man.
yeah. So welcome, brother. Happy to have you on
Appreciate
board.
the elk
man.
camp, baby.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
I'm real selective about the people I want to surround myself with, right? And Dallin is top notch, and I got to see that firsthand. When you have a guy that comes in and has a skill set, because Dallin's a stud. I mean, this guy jumps out of things to help, in situations when they have to tag deer and everything like this. This guy jumps out of flying things and mugs. They call it a mugger, basically, right? And he has his family has a lot of history in the hunting, right? And he's got an extreme skill set. When I saw him, he was an extremely good caller, but yet he was always on the calls. He was always like one of the guys that was sent, always communicating, excited. And here's the number one word, passionate, right?
Yeah.
And that's one thing that our profile for people who are going to work with us
Better be passionate.
there's a lot of things that I can work with. I can help people develop strategy, skill set, calling, work on all kinds of areas. You don't teach passion.
Got it or you don't.
You either have it or you don't, right? And that's kind of like, you know, it's funny because I just brought up talking about Luis gosh, it was just like either yesterday or the day before to somebody, because we were talking about in the ElkBros adventures, right? We now have, you know, we have coached hunts that happen, and we have one property that is a remote property. You know, 8 miles of getting into this property will take you over an hour, right? You know,
Sometimes 2, depending on the weather.
excuse me. And, you know, one of the conversations was, well, we have another gate that people can come in that would probably be a little bit easier to get into camp. And I was like, all right, so let me tell you a story. And it was the first time I met Luis Gonzalez, right? So we were going into elk camp together. And I met Luis for the first time on a paved road. We were getting ready to hit a dirt road, right? And he has this, I think it was like a 4Runner or something.
Nissan Armada.
Nissan Armada.
Okay.
Nissan
Yeah,
Armada.
with city tires.
2-wheel drive.
Yes, two-wheel
Two-wheel
drive.
drive.
And,
City
and,
drive
and,
country.
and with runners, you know, to step up
Yes.
on to get into the vehicle. And I'm like, bud, do you want to get in with somebody else and go? And he's like, no. You know, Luis, no.
I'm gonna tear my wife's car
I'm
up.
going to drive my vehicle in there, right? And I'm like, well, do you like those runners? Because they ain't going to be there after we get done, you know? And he's like, oh, I'm excited. Let's go, bro, you know, like that. And so we start going in. It's only 7 miles. The 7 miles took us 4 hours.
Because of Luis's vehicle.
No. May I please say that my Nissan Armada was able to pull Gilbert's
F-250
F-250
Super Duty.
out of a
I was hung high center, and all you need to do is jerk me off the high center rack. And then tell him what happened.
Qualification.
I don't know.
Tell him what happened after that.
So,
if
okay.
Big O don't have his vehicle,
Let's not deviate the
Armada-
point here. I mean, the point here is
The
I'm
Armada
so excited about
He
going
walks
in
from
here.
where he's at the Armada.
I mean, I don't know.
You
why
got
we're
qualification, redirection.
So once we start going in, we're probably in an hour or 2, and we've gone through mud hole. We've been stuck. We've gone over rocks. We've done all of this, you know, and it's about an hour or 2, and we're halfway. And so I stop, and in my mind, because I'm on a 4-wheeler leading everybody in my mind, I'm like, boy, these city boys going to get out and be like, what? Where in the heck are we? And when are we going to get to... Luis gets out. Woo-hoo. He's got this big smile on his face. He throws his hands up and he goes, Joe. He says, bro. He says, I don't care if I even see an elk. This has already been the best trip of my life. And I was like, dude, man, if this is cool for you, you just wait, right?
Yes. And it was a trip of a lifetime.
We didn't get into camp till midnight, and they go out.
It was raining.
It was pouring down rain. We're having to set our tents up in the pouring down rain, man. It was brutal. And they go out the next morning at like 3:30, 4 o'clock. Not Big O. Big O had to get his beauty rest, right? But he went out with
me and Chav.
Joe,
And Chav.
you and Chav, and saw bull
that morning.
first morning. Yeah.
But you know, that story, when I saw how he reacted and the pleasure of the trip alone, that's why when I was like, no, they don't need to come in the easiest way. Let them experience what it's like, because it is part of the experience.
Hold on a second. I got one thing to say about this. Let the adventure campers go through the Luis Gonzalez gate.
Yeah.
I want to go through the easy gate, bro.
Well, our coaches will see the easy gate, right?
Yeah. Yeah. They can have the mafioso gate, man. I'm good on that one, brother.
I don't know. Did your runners did they survive that trip?
Oh, they did.
They did.
They were hanging on by a thread. His wife was not happy when he got back.
Hey, there's a little bit of duct tape involved before I got to the house, but
They were hanging on.
they did okay. They survived.
What she don't know don't hurt her.
Dallin, you're usually in the air, man, right?
Yeah, through the winter, but I hit a lot of back roads.
Yeah.
In summer, some nasty roads.
Yeah.
Some roads like you're saying that are 8 miles.
Yeah.
Take all day to get in.
Yeah.
Yep.
Brutal trips, man.
Do you feel at home in those?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
When I first started hunting with Joe, Carl Gamage would take us in, and that 8 miles would take us 2 hours, right? And I rode on my first trip. In the cow camp, there's a bed, there's some bunks in there, and on my bunk, I wrote, "It's like heaven when you get here, but it's hell to leave," right? I mean, seriously, when you got there, you want to stay, because getting out of there, man, was just as hard as it was going in, and we're, 4 bulls heavy, so at the end of the day, it's an adventure when you start in it, for sure, at the Martinez cow camp. Y'all hear this again? There's a lot going on in the background. There's seminars going on. Joe just killed it at his seminar. The place was packed, man. And then at the booth right after that, dude's like Blitzkrieg. Here come everybody.
We got hammered pretty good.
We got hammered pretty good.
So everybody can understand the quality of this expo, man. I've been walking around, and some of the top people in the industry, incredible individuals, great human beings. It's so cool because we judge, me, Gilbert, and Dallin, we judged the calling competition, and Guy emceed it.
Yes.
Yesterday.
Great job yesterday, brother.
And you're talking about the daggum who's who.
Yeah, of elk calling.
Of elk calling.
Surprisingly or not, this is last year we had more who's who.
Really?
On the stage. Brought dudes out. I mean, Jason hadn't called in the comp in 12, 13 years until last year. Brought
Jason Phelps, right?
Yeah, brought Dirk Durham was on stage with him. I mean, we had some of the best callers there ever was and ever will be.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and so this year you got Jason Phelps, you got Bo Brooks in there, right?
Travis O'Shea,
Tom Diesling, right?
Yeah.
And some of the other people that we don't name.
You better correct that real quick, buddy. Thomas Diesing.
Thomas, I'm sorry. Because we got senior and son, right? But Thomas went home with a $5,000 check winning that thing yesterday, right?
Plus a hell of a prize tag.
Okay.
Shout out to our boy Seth Perky.
Okay, so that's the thing I was going to bring up, right? Is that last year in our adventure camp, we had Paul Perky that purchased to come and do an adventure hunt with us. So that's where we actually go through months of prep before they get there, and then we're coaching them at camp and everything. Well, he wanted his son to be his partner on that. So he went through all of our stuff. His name is Seth. When I met Seth could bugle on a call. So he could actually blow a bugle, but struggled in a lot of areas. And we worked last year on expanding his call set. And Seth jumps in this calling competition.
And his
first time.
Yeah, both of them.
ever.
Paul was up there too.
Paul jumped in
They
too.
both sounded really, really good.
Yeah, man.
Because Paul was up first, and when Paul got up there, I looked and I said, because I've heard him call.
Yeah.
You know, and I haven't heard him call in over a year.
Right.
And he stepped up on that stage, man, and he started calling, and everything I could do, right? I have to be poker face as I can up on that stage emceeing, right? Dude, I wanted to jump up and down and pound that stage. Yeah, because it was like having that time, coaching through that and listening to him call with, the lead up to season last year, and to hear him call and to have his head held up as he's calling says a lot for a first time guy on the stage. The confidence level, right?
He was nervous as a cat on a hot tin roof too, man.
Right, but this is a testament to what we do with ElkBros Adventures, because the confidence was there.
Yeah.
Right? If you can get up on that stage, elk don't judge you.
No.
They laugh at you and show you butts and nuts, but they don't judge you.
Right.
To get on that stage and have 60 people in that crowd, a handful of judges behind you judging you, and then the MC is judging you in his head as you're calling. It says a lot, man. It was impressive to watch both those guys up there.
Now, for everybody to understand, we couldn't see anything because we were behind the stage, behind the screen. So the judges don't see who's calling, and the callers don't see the judges. And so for me, I didn't even know Paul. I think now I realize he was calling, but I didn't, know.
He was
or
number
see him
one.
calling.
He was first guy out.
Well, he was second guy out.
Oh, second guy.
Yeah, because actually he would have to be third, because I think Bo Brooks was number 2 from what I'm understanding now.
Gotcha.
And then it was Paul after that, because first one was Jeff.
Well, number 3 was the one we went, dang, that guy's really good. We just wanted a little more content, right?
Yeah.
Because we were all talking about it. As a matter of fact, our lead judge, the number 1 judge, he held number 3 out. Remember? He didn't send it back down because he wanted to marinate on it a little more.
So then Paul was number 1.
No.
Okay.
Nope.
Really?
No.
Well, because Jeffrey called number 1, but the actual real number 1 was Paul.
No.
No?
Number 1 was Jeffrey.
Right.
Paul was number 5.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Seth Perkey was 17.
That's correct.
So here's what's crazy. Number 2, the guy you're comparing Paul to,
Yeah.
Was Bo Brooks.
Bo Brooks.
Exact. There you go.
Think about what that says
Yeah.
for the level of calling that Paul got up on stage with.
Yeah, man.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that says a whole heck of a lot for that dude's progress in that amount of time.
Heck yeah,
Flipping
it is.
impressive. Look at those colors.
Robbie Dickman and myself, Cody Robbins, from the Tech TV show.
Yeah, no, it was absolutely phenomenal. And then to watch Seth get called in the last 4, in the last squad where they had 1 and 6 and then 2 and 4 or something like that.
Oh, you
go
got,
again in
you
A
got
and B.
Thomas Diesley, you got Jason Phelps, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's up there calling with big
Seth
dogs.
Perkey.
And Seth, he's standing up there with Jason and has no clue, who's there, because he's not in the caller wall. And so he had no clue who that was in there, right?
Then the guy who finished 3rd was Gabe, who guided our buddy Carter McKenzie from the Hunt, Lift, Eat podcast, right?
Oh, and Gabe sounded
phenomenal.
I
man.
told Gabe after the comp and after awards that, dude, I was so proud of him because he's called at the Western Hunt Fest call comp, right? And to hear his progression in the last couple years, he dialed in,
No
man.
doubt.
He dialed in.
Super proud of that.
Yeah.
Man. Super proud of all those guys, and then Seth coming not even a year out of our elk camp, 7-8 months, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then to see his progress. And his dad was so proud, man. He had tears in his eyes, He's like, it's his first calling competition, and he runs up against the who's who and finishes 4th. They're pretty solid.
And when he came into camp last year, I had him stand up because I'd been working with him, and I'm like, I don't usually do this, but Seth, jump up, show them your chuckle, because this dude's chuckle.
Good.
Oh
Very
my
good.
God, man!
He didn't drop a chuckle.
I don't think he did.
He didn't chuckle once.
I don't
Are
think
you
he
really?
did.
Are you sure?
And
He did not chuckle once.
And didn't he?
Because man, he can.
It didn't.
No, no, that's the problem. That's what
Yeah.
I'm saying.
Yeah.
He might have had a second, third.
Never know.
If he'd thrown the chuckle in, right?
Maybe.
You got to get those dynamic calls in there too.
Yeah. The nuances
Yeah.
and stuff.
Yeah,
So-
that might have made the difference.
So the cool thing too is like, the 2 fellas that I have sitting here, Luis and Dallin, they're not able, because they got a hand mic, they're not able just to like friggin' start. Luis, he'll start talking and we can't even hear him over there.
Yeah.
But I would, because this is a kid that we worked with last year. That was his growth in the year. I would put these 2 men, and I'm saying Luis Gonzalez and Dallin Staker, I would have put up there with anybody.
Yeah. For
I
sure.
think both of y'all are tremendous callers,
Yeah.
man.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. And
Fantastic.
You know what I was really impressed with that contest was the youth and the peewee.
Yeah,
That
man.
was cool. That's
Absolutely.
our upcoming callers.
Yeah.
And watching them, or hearing them.
And what's
do
crazy
that.
is some of them peewees didn't even use a reed.
I know it was,
They just
Most
use
of
their
them
mouth.
don't.
well, that's Luis.
but they're hitting those notes and they're learning what they need to do, and that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, Joe wants me to compete in the Pee Wee. That's where he thinks I'm actually going to be.
I told him I'd put him against anybody in the Pee Wee.
Anybody in the Pee Wee competition. That's where I'll do good. But no, I agree with you. I've heard Dallin, work it out at the booth, man, and he's amazing. He does really well. And I hadn't met Dallin, and I just have to say this, talking about how Joe picks the people that he wants to be surrounded with, and totally meets the profile. I just pleasure to meet him. Great person. You can tell right away he fits right in, and you're very welcome, man. And it's been a pleasure meeting you on this trip. So
here comes the kiss.
Look forward to.
Give him a kiss.
Don't be jealous.
Here comes the kiss.
Look forward to someday sharing the mountain, man. So.
I really appreciate that. I mean, I feel like I know everybody because I've seen all the podcasts and the YouTube and stuff. So I feel like I already know everybody. I've met Guy at it was, I think, the Western Expo in Utah. But yeah, it's an honor to be here. So
cool. And there's a coach that's holding the booth together right now. That, man, he talk about another caller, man, Daniel V. Hill. Yeah. Daniel is a heck of a caller.
This is the nice thing, right, with the Western Hunt Fest taking over the call scene. Is Daniel was down when we did the call comp for the Outdoorsman Days. Now we're talking elk calling, right? Well, the Outdoorsman Days, because it's Outdoorsman Days, it's whatever you want to call. This dude walks up elk, predator, fowl, and just slams every single mother-loving one of them. I mean, he's like, well, what can I do? Whatever you want. He goes, runs to the truck, gets a bunch of calls. There's a guy out there, man. He's quack, 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 quack. And he's like, oh, I got this. He comes back, dude, and this guy hits there's guys, and I don't even say what they do is calling. It's mimicry. Yeah, exactly. Right? Like they can go and mimic any animal on the landscape, and that's that dude, man. Yeah, and
that's how Bo Brooks is. Same type of person, right?
Yeah, V Hill has some skills, man.
One reason that's important to us is like it's so. I just got to tell you too, man. I just sat back, and I'm watching Dallin, I'm watching Luis, I'm watching Gil, man, I'm watching Daniel, I'm watching these guys working with people, helping people make their first sounds, helping them pick out calls, giving them tips. You see the smiles, the laughs, and, everybody shaking hands and coming by and talking. And I just, I can't tell you how proud that makes me. It's something most people don't understand. This is not about business when it's like that, right? When you come and you get to have yourself surrounded with this quality of a group that we have, and you get to see how they are affecting other people and how they're, again, that word, passionate about teaching and proud of representing ElkBros, or, we're over there, we're all branded up in shirts together, we look like a team.
I ain't got no goddamn shirt.
Yeah, you do.
Where's my shirt at?
I don't know.
Luis
I got two.
There it is, right there. You know what? If I'm gonna give up a shirt, it's gonna be to Luis. I could dig that.
I told you somebody took the extra large.
I could dig giving it up to Luis.
I know where we get another one, brother.
Where?
He ain't buying an extra shirt. He's gonna Sharpie ElkBros right on the front of that sundae. He's gonna buy a 12-pack, keep 11. I'm gonna have a Hanes Sharpie ElkBro.
A fruit of the loom.
Can't waste too much ink on this dog. It's gonna be like that big across the chest.
You mean you didn't even get a hat?
I got hats.
Yeah, you got hats.
Yeah, I got hats.
All kinds of trinkets. I mean, as soon as you walked in, it was almost like a whole bag of just goodies from ElkBros.
No, not for me. Not for Gil. Brought me something.
I did, yeah. He was going to be in elk camp with us last year, and so he got his glass that I had made for everybody. So it was cool. We missed Guy in camp.
I just got to say, first expo with the bros for sure.
Yeah.
And it's been
Won't be the last.
pretty cool experience, you know. Hopefully it won't be the last, like you said, but
And you know, he's done great in the booth. He's finally felt what it's like to be a salesman a day in the life, right? So he's been killing it over there selling stuff.
You know what's been good for me with Luis is watching Luis grow over the last couple years with adventure and adventure camp, and seeing him shine, not just where he's strong, but grabbing a hold of his weak points, and really trying to excel there, right? Because the aero build stuff, he's elevated that game,
No doubt.
right?
Yeah.
But
And all of ours.
yeah, and he's gone like this in the other aspects. But the best thing about seeing him at his first expo, kid in a freaking candy store,
He
bro.
is. Yeah, dude.
And I'll
No
look
doubt.
and I'll see him
Every booth.
walking down the aisle.
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
where am I
man.
going now?
All the eye candy. Yeah.
dude, and I tell you another thing, man, that is kind of weird is like, you know, you're sitting there at the booth, and all of a sudden people will come in and they approach you with a big smile, like they know you, and you're like, "Hello, can I help you?"
It's a little weird at first.
It's
Yeah.
weird,
Yeah,
man.
it's a little weird at
And
first.
then they just, you know, some guys come in like. I had never met Scott in person, you know, and
Scott Baker, yeah.
well, as soon as I met him, you know, he gave me a big old hug,
Yeah.
and I was
Yeah.
like, you know, he's that kind of guy. You
Yeah.
know? And
Yeah.
so it's just been very rewarding in that sense, and obviously, you know, getting to spend time with the bros, our friends from Canada, you know.
Yeah,
Travis O'Shea.
Travis
Yeah.
O'Shea and Carrie, the
Yeah,
real
Carrie.
brains of
Yeah, the brains.
Wapiti River,
Yes.
right? At the end of I mean, Travis is the backbone and Carrie's the brains.
Look, y'all, I hope you enjoyed our live session from the Mile High Expo in Denver. What an incredible event that was. We really got a chance to meet some incredible people. And as you can tell, we really don't like each other. Look, we had a blast. We loved meeting so many of you grinders out there that came by to say hello, people that we got to work with calling. We got to work with an incredibly amazing calling competition. It was second to none. The talent and the people there were just amazing. I loved the opportunity to do some seminars, and it was really honestly special for me to see our coaching staff, man, to see them working, to see them teaching, and to see them coaching their butts off. So that was pretty cool. And you know, hopefully, those of y'all that didn't get to attend that, if you're in Colorado or in northern New Mexico, I'm really looking forward to meeting some more folks and doing some more seminars at the upcoming Western Hunt Fest. So May 9th and 10th, it's going to be in Colorado Springs. I will be there doing a seminar on Friday, and then I got to boogie out. My granddaughter, she's graduating from preschool and going into kindergarten, and you know, it's a pretty big deal for us as a family. So I'm actually going to head from Colorado Springs, drive 6 hours that evening, get into Albuquerque. But there's one thing that you know, and just not going to miss being there to support her. You know, her mom, my youngest daughter, is right now in Egypt, and my daughter is a PTA, and all of these things that have been, and I want you to understand something. This is probably one of the most courageous women I've ever met. Both my daughters, incredibly courageous women, strong women. And I don't say that lightly, that she's in Egypt, like, you know, she's in Burke or Vegas or, no, I mean, this is something she's never done before. But after seeing, you know, these things happening to children that have been victims of war in Gaza and what's happened to them, you know, she told me, she said, Dad, I just can't any longer just give it lip service. I got to do something. I got to climb my mountain. And I hope you understand that. And more than she knows. So she, all on her own, basically she got a little bit of support from some friends, some family, but on her own, she's volunteering. She headed to Egypt with a group, and she works with children that have lost limbs that, or have been, man, the stories, the resilience of these children is amazing, and the stories are so heartbreaking. But she's firsthand there working with kids that are above the knee amputees, below the knee amputees, kids that have had shrapnel to the head or have lost part of their foot or different things. And she's actually there doing rehab with them, with an organization to get those kids back to being able to function. And probably one of the greatest experiences of her life right now, besides her family at home. And you know, I just want to just let you know that you know, there's some things that happen out there that are pretty dang special. So so May 9th and 10th, I'm sorry, y'all. Yeah, I'm a little emotional about it. What she's doing, it just really striking me in my heart. So May 9th and 10th, Colorado Springs. And then June 6th and 7th, we are going to be at the NRA Whittington Center with the Western Hunt Fest in Raton. It's just outside of Raton, actually, up here in northern New Mexico. And if you haven't done the Western Hunt Fest, you got to check it out. Incredible event. Okay, so but now it's time to jump into part 3 of Solo with Coach, developing your elk game plan, y'all. And it's really important for me to understand that what I'm trying to do with this is to develop a knowledge and a mindset that can be used anywhere, anytime, okay? It's just that if you have this knowledge, if you have this mindset, the playing field doesn't matter. I'm really not talking about states and places. You know, I will talk a little bit about terrain and different things like that and how it works within your mindset and within your knowledge set. But I really want you to understand that this game plan that I'm giving you is basically so that you can prepare, yourself, because you are really the greatest tool when it comes to your success on an elk hunt. And look, if you want to succeed at anything, and y'all, we're talking elk hunting, but this model goes to life, it goes to job, it goes to family. If you want to succeed in anything, it takes work. You have to work at it. And what I'm actually trying to do with this is to kind of streamline that work for you to help you be more efficient in your knowledge and preparation. But like I said, from the beginning, it always comes down to you. Because think about this. When you're out hunting, the weakest link to your success, that's going to be you. And you will only be able to perform to the level of your preparation. Okay, so off my soapbox. I want to make sure, too, that you remember how I'm categorizing all of this and doing this game plan and thinking about it as a coach thinks about it. And I've tried to do this, guys, and as I go through this, I try to do this in a way so I can organize it, because in my mind, my head, there's so much of this that after this is my 43rd season, after all these years of hunting and guiding, and I've you know, I hunt personally just with a bow, but I have been guiding rifle hunters forever. And so I want you to understand, you guys that are rifle hunters, when you hear me talk, yes, you're going to hear me talking most of the time from an archery, from a bow hunter position. But I truly believe that my abilities as a bow hunter make me so much more effective as a rifle hunter. With some adjustment, yeah, I mean, it brings its own nuances, but you know, because of these things that I learned, because of these knowledge sets that I have, because of the understanding of my opponent, it really helps me no matter what time of year. So I broke this down into offense and defense. And when I was talking about offense, I'm talking about those skill sets and strategies to put you in the right position to score. That's the offense. And I basically have 2 goals with offense: creating scoring opportunities and becoming efficient in the red zone. All right. Being able to finish. Okay. And then I go to defense, and defense is acting and reacting decisively to your opponents and defending against those unforeseen moments, those breakdowns in strategy and preparation that could magnify your weaknesses and prevent you from a win. And I'll tell you this, man, you know, I believed this in when I coached basketball. I believe this in football. I believe it in anything, that sometimes your defense can become your best offense, because we're going to have offensive mindsets. We're going to have philosophy. We're going to have strategies, but you're going to have all these dynamic variations that are going to come into play there that you're going to have to reevaluate or defend against in certain moments. And it only comes down to that strategy, that preparation that you have to be able to react to that, that's going to determine whether or not you're going to be successful. Okay, so reminding you that our 3 goals with defense. Our first goal with defense is to identify and eliminate our own weaknesses or possible failure points. I kind of did that last time, all right? When I talked about eliminating failure points when it came to your gear, your skill sets, and a little bit of calling, because I'm going to come back to calling quite a bit more, and then in shooting preparation. And really, all of that came down to is in the heat of the moment, being able to do what you need to do no matter what the terrain's given you, whether it's up, down, whether your feet are uneven, whether you've got low brush, whether you got trees in front of you, whether you have to slide out, whether you have to be on one knee, 2 knees on the bottom, standing up with your feet in weird position, and talking about how to position that. And then really, you know, talking about shooting in those actual situations with the gear that you wear. All of the things that become those surprises, those things that end up becoming your failure points that you discover, and you're like, oh, lesson learned, but you don't want to be learning that lesson in the field because you only get so many opportunities. And if you're not efficient in those opportunities, and look, we're going to learn things all the time out there, but if it's something that we can prevent ahead of time just by making sure that we work like we're going to play, right? Practice like we're going to play. If we do that, we can eliminate some of those things ahead of time, okay? The second goal of defense is knowing how to read the field and adjust to a situation, like, you know, understanding your opponent, what the keys are, what's happening in that field because of the formations that are taken. And that formation might not, you know, it might be that animal according to where other animals are. It might be that animal according to the type of terrain you have. It might be that animal according to where other hunters are. There's all kinds of ways that you have to read the field. You know, you might have great terrain, but your wind sucks, okay? And you have to adjust to those situations. And a huge part of being able to read the field is being able to, first of all, understand your opponent, what drives them, what their thinking is. Because if you see like an opening, and honestly, this is elk right here, man. If you have this field out there, and because of the formation, you have a particular opening that is going to be an easy way for that animal to get through. That is where that animal wants to go through because they like the path of least resistance. So, and as you can tell, man, my head is always just like spinning with stuff inside of it. And I'm really going to try my best to give it to you as I go about doing this, okay? Also, so we talked about identifying and eliminating your weaknesses, knowing how to read the field. And then the third goal, man, is to act and react decisively to an opponent's actions, okay? That's so key, man, because, you know, you don't want paralysis from analysis. You want to have certain keys and understanding, and then you react and you go to it. And look, here's the thing, just like in any sport, you're going to have blow-ups. You're going to have things that don't work. You're going to have misses. You're going to have missed tackles. You're going to have missed shots. You're going to have all those things that happen. And you have to have short memory as far as if that happens out of a great attempt, you know, because don't forget, you know, you're not dealing with a static target. You're dealing with an animal that's trying to survive, right? So this is a critter that is using all its senses in its home turf and trying to survive. So there are so many things and so many nuances and variables and, dynamic things that are going to occur that you have to be able to overcome. And there's sometimes you are going to do everything right. You're going to do everything right. And it's not going to end up in the way that you want it to. And, me and others around me, our crew, sometimes we just look at each other and we just go, wasn't his day to die, right? And that's just how you do. And then you move on. It doesn't mean that you made a mistake all the time. It means sometimes that animal did what it's supposed to do to identify a situation, red flag it, or have something happen to their senses or something that signaled for them that, man, it's time to get out of Dodge. Okay. So again, up next, what I'm going to, last time I talked about failure points with your gear and everything like that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to jump into the second defensive goal, knowing how to read the field and adjust into the situation. And in order for you to be able to read the field, you have to know your opponent, their weaknesses, what drives them, and how to turn those into opportunities, how to turn them into your favor, right? So like, when I play ball, right, if you're a linebacker and you learn to read certain things, then you are making a definite move to be able to take an angle, cut it off, fill a hole, and then make a play, right? It's no different on this. So I'm hoping that this is kind of ringing home with some of y'all out there. So what I want to do is I'm going to jump in on some behaviors for you to understand, and even some misconceptions, because I think that's important as well. I think when we talk about behaviors, we also got to talk about some of those behavioral misconceptions or even hunter behaviors that I think can cause a breakdown in strategy, cause a breakdown in your defense or in your reacting or to the decisions you make. So up first, let's talk about some behaviors to understand. And some of these, and if you listen to me, and a lot of these come out all the time in things that I talk about. I think this is like the first time that I've kind of just like listed them here where I'm talking about them, and we'll see if there isn't some new nuggets you get out of this, and if not, maybe it just continues to confirm, or if we've got new listeners, you're going to learn a little bit about my thinking process, my philosophy, and how I go about doing things. And also, disclaimer, and I always want to say this, man, remember, this is me. This is from my learning, right? This is from my knowledge set over 40 some years. And I have called in, 1,000 animals, man. I have worked with 1,000 different hunters. I've been in so many situations that I've seen all of these different things. And that doesn't mean, look, that doesn't mean I don't make mistakes, because these critters teach me something new every day. And that's what I love about this, man. That's why it's still a challenge. I mean, if it was just, okay, you do A, B, C, results in D, then I don't know that I would have the passion that I do for these incredibly majestic animals, man. So, again, this is me. That doesn't mean that everything I do is correct, and it doesn't mean that it's the best way to do it. It's just how I do it, and it's how I teach it, right? It's how I coach it. And there's reasons behind each of these things that I do. So behaviors to understand. So the first thing, and for me, it's real critical to understand that elk have a fatal flaw, all right? And there's a lot of things about elk that create a lot of and there's other fatal flaws that they have, and it has to do with the fact that they're social animals, has to do with the fact that during the rut, they're not thinking clear. It has to do with the fact that they're social animals. It has to do with the fact that they utilize the language, that they communicate. All of these things kind of lead to small fatal flaws. But the biggest fatal flaw that they have is that they want to confirm visually. Okay. And that is so important for you to understand. Yes, they use their nose. But when they use their nose, they can only use it from the direction the wind's coming from. Yes, they use their ears, but even though they hear something, it's just they. And here I'm going to talk about this a little later. They are so much like us, man. It's, what you see is what you believe. And even something that they hear, a lot of times they're going to go to confirm it. All right. And the fact that they want to confirm visually leads to their fatal flaw. And that is like if I'm in a setup and let's say I have a bull that's coming into me and I haven't drawn and I have to draw. Well, if you've listened to us, we preach in order for you to be successful in killing an animal, you have to draw your bow. It's just flat out. You have to draw. But a lot of people are like, well, if I draw, I'm going to spook that animal. Understand something. When elk in their nature is they need to survive, right? But when they see movement and they don't know what that movement is, their first response is to create space. That's their first response. Their second response is then to turn and look to see what it is that they saw that they just created that space from. So if you have a bull that's coming in and everything's in your favor, and a lot of times how much they booger or whether or not they booger depends on distance, right? Because it's that distance between them and a possible threat that will cause them to either jump a certain distance or just to turn and look. I've found that as animals are like 10 yards and in, if I draw on them, they are going to create space between themselves and a possible threat. They don't know what that movement is. I mean, that movement could be a squirrel, it could be a deer, it could be another elk, man. They don't know. So they want to first turn and look. And the reason they turn is if they have something coming at them and they're not able to get away, they are going to use their horns to defend themselves, right? So what they will do is if I draw on that animal, if he does booger, he is going to run, and that could be 10 yards, it could be 15, it could be 20 yards. But at that point, he's going to turn, and most of the time that animal is going to turn broadside. So if you draw on the animal, you absolutely stay in, be ready, understand that whatever that distance is he's going to stop at, you're now going to have to know that. Is that going to be that 25? Is it going to be that 30 yards? That's where we talked about that in the shooting part, right? In the preparation. But you're going to stay right on that animal because you can cow call, you can grunt, because when you do that, now you're confusing him. You're giving him an auditory signal that, oh, what I just saw was another elk, and he's going to turn and actually look to see where that elk is, right? So he's going to actually turn out there and turn broadside and give you that opportunity. That is their fatal flaw. For rifle hunters, if you have a bull in the middle of a field and he sees motion, sees you coming to the edge of the field and starts heading for the trees, you better lock and load, and you better sight in on the trees where they're going in there, because that bull is going to go 5 yards, 10 yards in the trees. He's going to turn broadside and check to see if what that threat was is now coming after him or not. Okay. So their fatal flaw is that they have to confirm visually. Now, so beyond drawing on them, that's the same thing in your setup, man. So in thinking defensively within an offensive setup, and that's the thing about when I talk about offense and I talk about your strategy and I talk about things on being able to close, when everything's become dynamic because you have to move in accordance to what that animal is doing, now you're in defensive mode. You're reacting to what they are doing, right? So, when you do something like that in your offensive setup, knowing that an animal wants to confirm visually, you want to use the field to hide your formation, your setup, because that animal will now come looking for you. The more open that critter is, the more that animal does not have to move forward to be able to do something that we call a stop and scan. And that's a behavior that I'm going to go into directly after this. So when you are doing a setup, remember that they want to confirm visually. So play hide and seek with them. You know, they're going to come to sounds, right? Your wind is in your favor. And you want to try to use that formation. You want to try to use that field to make them go where you want them to go so that you have the most effective shot, okay? Also, when using sounds, because you know they confirm visually, when you're using sounds, be deceptive. Never let the animal know that you're right here in this location. You either want to be more to one side, the other side, or behind you. Look, you know, that is why I use this bugle tube. That is why I created this bugle tube the way I did, so that I'm able to, if I have an animal coming in, I'm able to use this eyes forward, I'm still scanning, and I'm able to throw my sounds back behind me, all right? If I have an animal that's over here to my right, and I want him to come across a certain way, I'm going to throw my sounds over off to this side. I'm being deceptive, just like they do on defense when they're calling out something that they want the offense to hear, to think that, you know, that they're doing one thing when they're actually doing the other. That's the thing about defenses, man. It's you want to be shapeless, you want to confuse, you want them to never know exactly what your plan is. So you have to do it in that way. And I'm always deceptive with my sounds. And I can tell you that is a huge, excuse me, that is one huge reason that I'm successful. Remember, I have killed, I think it's been like on state land, public land, something like 38 elk in the last 41, 42 years. And of those, 37 of them have been solo. Okay. So basically using solo, me being the caller and me being the shooter. All right. So when I tell you these things, I'm trying to tell you exactly what works for me. And it is imperative to be deceptive with your sounds and still being able to use your eyes, seeing what that animal is doing, seeing how they're reacting. I've had a bull that, because I've been deceptive with my sounds, it actually worked too good. And so the bull has come across at my face with the brush too far out of my comfortable shooting range and going in the wrong direction. So I'm able to still look at that animal when that animal's doing that and steer them in the right direction. I've taken that call and thrown my call back to the opposite side, so he stops and he looks and he's like, and because I'm throwing the sound behind me, still thinks that it's possibly 30 or 40 or 50 yards further in the other direction. He's not red flagging because he doesn't see it. If I was just a cow call, if that bull's going the wrong direction and I cow call right here using my mouth, it's over. He's stopping and turning, and he's stopping and scanning, right? He is looking for me. He's looking to see where that other elk is. And when he doesn't see one, you're going to have a problem, okay? That's when he's going to be like, he'll might even just like bark. He might bark chuckle, doing just like an invitation for you to come to him, you know? And there's not much you can do. You're right there. You can see that animal, and he should be able to see you. So you pretty much have screwed all that up, okay? So fatal flaw, y'all. It's so imperative for you to keep that in mind, what that flaw is, okay? All right, so the next behavior to understand is I want you to understand what I've just been talking about, that stop and scan behavior. What is that? That is an elk survival mechanism. They do this all day long. They move and they stop and scan. They check for a threat. They're looking to see what's in an area before they move into it. And they'll do it using the terrain just like I try to teach you to do. We as hunters should be doing the same thing that these elk are doing, man. Any opportunity that we have a new vision, that we have a new opening, we should be stopping and scanning. Anytime that we have a raising terrain that we're coming up on, you just don't want to walk up on top of it. You want to kind of periscope. Just get your eyes above it and you start scanning. Every time you get a new look, you're scanning there. We're not scanning for a threat. I don't know, maybe we are. I mean, if we catch any motion, but we're looking for those animals. We're looking for movement. We're looking for horizontal lines. We're looking for a twitch of an ear. We're looking for a patch of color, and elk are doing the same thing. I kind of liken it to a SWAT team moving through an area. They come to a spot and they look clear, and then they move to the next spot and then they look clear. Elk do this all day long. All right. And here's what, just like that SWAT team, when they go and they clear a path, if they need to retreat, they're going to go back the exact same way they came because they know that that's a safe route, right? Elk have that. That's also a flaw, and something that you need to understand is that if they have come to an area and proven to themselves that that's safe, and let's say they get bored and they go back and they go another direction because you had called them over, they didn't see anything, and then they go back the other way. If you call again, they will come back to that exact same spot because that path is already clear for them. The other thing to remember is they will always go the way they came as well. So that's critical because and I try to tell people, like, if you are hunting near a fence line and on that other side is, let's say, private land, if you want to avoid a situation, you will definitely not try shooting an animal close to that fence line that you can't put him down in 10 to 20 seconds before they get to that, because they are going to go back the way they came, and you're going to end up in a situation where now you got to contact a private landowner and try to go through all of that because they're going to go back the way they came. So they have this stop and scan behavior. And when you understand that, you can now use that as, in your favor defensively, man. So if I have an animal that's working in and I know this animal's coming and I see that there's a screen of trees out there, that he's, 100, 150 yards on the other side working my way, and then I've got this scan of trees right there, and those scan of trees are 80 yards from me, man, I do not want to be 80 yards from that. I need to move up as close to that being my effective shooting range. So when that booger comes through and you look, are there down trees? Is he going to go to the, he could go to the right or the left of that? Do I want myself positioned so that when I get up to that, is there a gap? Is there a low point, an opening? Is there a trail, right? Because as soon as they bust through that or come over, let's say, and that's one of my favorites, man, if they come up and over, now as soon as they get there, yeah, they're going to do that stop and scan. If they can't see, they're going to keep coming, and then when they get to where they can see everything, they're going to stop and scan again. You have to be in position. You have to recognize those doorways. You have to recognize those places where that critter is going to come through, just like they would in a house, man. Just like they come through and they're going to check the bedroom. They're going to keep going. They're going to check the bathroom. Keep going. They're going to check the kitchen, but they're going to use the hallway that gives them the easiest path, the least path of resistance. Okay? All right. So stop and scan behavior. The next behavior to understand, and I think this is one that most hunters really forget, is elk time. All right. Understand, elk do not move in human time. They have no place they have to be. They don't have to pick up the kids at school. They ain't got to be at work. They don't have to be there when the postman gets there. They have, their only thing that they have to do is survive. And they can get to a feed area and take their daggum time. They can get to water and they can go a long time without that water, and they can travel great distances to get there. So And the reason I want you to understand elk time is, especially as a caller, I think so many times people are calling elk and elk are responding, not verbally, but they're responding by coming to you to do what? They want to verify visually, right? They're hearing and they're coming. But a lot of times, because we don't get a verbal response, we just move on, man. And I can't tell you how many times it's happened where I've just kept moving. All of a sudden, a bull responds back where I was at. Now, this has always been something that has kind of baffled me because of the whole nose thing, right? And you talk to whitetail hunters, and I know they wear rubber boots, and the reason they do is if they go through an area and a whitetail comes through and smells human scent, boom, gone, right? You would think that would be the same way with elk, and I really don't believe it is. That from my feet on the ground, and I don't know if it's the distance of their nose from the ground. I don't know if it's that they're not really ground smellers, that they're more, they're more the wind channel smellers, because I have on multiple occasions had elk follow me, right? Keeping a certain distance. And I'm not sure if they're keeping that distance because number one, they might be a different size bull. Maybe they're not in the same mode. Maybe they're just trailing, hoping to find out if they can scent a cow or something like that. I've had them follow me and stay certain distances. And there's actually a strategy to deal with that, especially if you're with a partner. But, the reason that happened is because I had moved too quick. Animals finally came in and they're letting me know I'm right here, right? Okay. And sometimes it'll just be a chuckle. Sometimes it'll be a bugle. It's not an aggressive bugle. It's just a I'm right here, type thing. And most of the time I hunt early season. So I think it really has to do with that whole bull pecking order, buddy thing. So, when that has happened, that's kind of how in my mind I relate that. But elk time, where this really comes in critical is when we start talking on my offensive strategies, when I start talking about painting a picture, when I talk about creating a scenario. So many times I've had people that have created scenarios and they're like, okay, an elk hasn't showed up. It's been 10 minutes. Oh, an elk hasn't showed up. It's been 15 minutes. Oh, an elk hasn't showed up. It's been 25 minutes. And they're like, well, I should have heard or seen something. And here's the thing. When I say heard or seen something, a lot of times they're listening for a bugle. They're not listening a lot of times for those other things, rolling rocks, breaking twigs, blah, blah, blah. But they come in silently so many times. And I can't tell you, a lot of times, and some of you guys are going, yep, happened to me, yep. They stand up to leave, take a step and look, and there's a bull standing 20 yards away, looking directly at him, because that bull is coming in totally silent. But that animal came in elk time. They didn't come in by your watch. They're not going to come in by your watch. So that's where I tell guys, you got to be patient. If you're going to do a scenario, if you're going to paint a picture, unless you have other things that occur that tell you that it's time to move, whether now you've heard something and it's moving in a certain direction, or you've smelled something from a different direction, or it's just nothing is just showing that maybe you chose the wrong reason to set up and do that there and you evaluated that, right? But if you're there and you do that, you have to give it 35, 45 minutes, and even at that, a lot of times you can have animals still coming into you. Okay. So elk time, it's real important for you to understand that and slow down. And even if you're like, for me, I'm always putting on a scenario, even when I'm moving, like during the day when I'm moving, I'm always sounding like either a cow calf, or a group of cows when I'm moving, because I want bulls to hear me, and just like good defensive backs, I want them to take an angle and start coming into me. Well, in order for me to see or hear them, or to have that opportunity, I have to stop at times and I have to listen, right? And sometimes I just stop and really just sit there for a little bit, letting them catch up. Then I can move a little bit more, doing the same thing, and then stop again. So I'm just basically doing mini setups as I'm going. It's one way to think about that. Okay. So that's why I really want you to really think about that as far as elk time. Now, the other behavior that I need you to totally understand is this thing about rut, right? Because most people, and I've said this several times in seminars and when I talk and in podcasts, is that most people think a rut is this overall phenomenon, that if bulls are screaming here, they should be screaming over here, and they're going to stay screaming right there. All right. There's a difference between the rut, which is a seasonal thing that happens, and a rut, the actual occurrence of the rut. Okay. You've got to understand that, because what creates a rut is a cow coming in estrus. That's what creates the rut. That's what creates those bulls going crazy. That's what creates the sounds of multiple bulls screaming like that, right? When you hear that, is that cow is in estrus, and she's going to be in estrus for approximately 20 hours, right? I mean, there's been guys that have gone in on a hunt, opening day, walked out of camp, walked into this, just blowing up, elk just blowing up everywhere. And they're like, man, this is going to be great. And they even have a first day opportunity, and they're like, no, man, this is too good. I'm not going, I'm going to pass because I'm going to get all these other opportunities. And then the next day, crickets, because that animal is no longer in estrus. And now these bulls are back in trying to find a cow that is, right? So the whole idea of the rut is something that is real critical for you to understand, because you can be on this side of the ridge, nothing. You can go 400 yards to the other side, it can be blowing up, right? I mean, as a guide, I had the opportunity to guide in an incredible ranch called Vermejo Park, in one of Ted Turner's properties. And this is almost 600,000 acres. Each guide with our client, we get about 10,000 acres to work with on there. If you like that idea, just have about 20K in your pocket to be able to do it. Anyway, one of the greatest things I learned from that, though, is, we'd have all these guys in these 10,000 acres, and we all see each other in the evening when we come back, and it's like, no, quiet, quiet, quiet. And this one place just blowing up with one of the guides, and another place just blowing up. And it's like these other guys in areas are getting the silent treatment. And really, the silent treatment happens a lot more often than not a lot these days, okay? But just so that you can see, and we'd come back and they're like, no, I found a rut in such and such canyon. I found a rut over in such and such flats, right? So that's something that you try to stay on. And here's the deal, like in Colorado, when we came across bulls, they didn't have a whole lot of cows. So like if a rut occurred with that bull's cows, it could be minimal, it could be 2, it could be 5, it could be 7, something like that, but it's a limited number, right? Here in New Mexico, especially places we hunt, you're going to find bulls a lot of times that have got 20, 30, maybe 50 cows, right? When that happens, those cows are a lot like humans. When one comes in estrus, other ones will a lot of times hit that same timing, right? Not all of them, but the bigger the herd, the bigger the chance of animals hitting estrus and those ruts continuing. All right, so that's something that can actually keep ruts happening with a certain bull, and it doesn't mean it's going to stay in that location, because those animals are going to be moving. They're going to be moving because that bull is going to be catching pressure from satellites. He's going to be hooking. He's going to be prodding. He's not going to determine where they move to, but he's going to absolutely be the one that is like pushing the issue. Okay, so that's the rut. A rut and the rut are two different things. Understand those things, because here's another part of I'm going to jump to one of my offensive strategies and show you how I use that defensively, right? Is that when there is not a rut occurring, and if I'm basing my offense on animals bugling and understanding that kind of thing, then I can myself be deceptive and try to do the things that are going to make animals believe that there's a rut occurring. Because look, elk are, again, you're going to hear this so many times, they're just like you. When you're out there and you're listening and you hear a bull bugle, you're listening, you hear two bulls bugle, you know there's a rut going on, and you're going to move to it. Those other bulls that are out there that are just moving through, looking for cows, looking for herds, looking for elk or cows that are possibly in heat, when they hear multiple bugles, when they hear a bull moving with cows, they are going to go to it too. So I truly believe that you can do this is you can bring elk into an area, if there's some place around there, just by reproducing a rut. And that's something that I do, is if there's not a party going on, I try to be the party. I want to invite elk to come to me by doing things that elk do, that other elk are going to recognize and they are going to come to. So I truly believe that by working an area and working it the right way and trying to do the things that other elk can hear what's going on, they are going to respond by coming to that and trying to locate what's happening in that area. I think sometimes I've actually helped to spark a little bit of a rut, okay, in an area, just by moving groups into that, okay? All right, so that's a rut, and that's some things to think about. Okay, now here's another thing. Again, how my mind works, right? And so that's real prevalent into how some of the things that you should be thinking about is that anytime, and this happens so much for us, is that we always have people come up and they're giving us a scenario to understand something that didn't work for them or something that occurred on a hunt, okay? And whenever they tell me a story or anything, there are two questions that come out of my mouth immediately. What's the date of the hunt? In other words, I want to know what time of year they're hunting. And the reason that I want to know what time of year is I want to understand the type of bull that they are possibly working with, or what mode that bull is most likely in at that time of year. Okay, so it's real critical for you anytime that you're in the woods to recognize the time of year that you're hunting and what the possible modes are, or the most prevalent mode of that animal. Like, is it real early season when all the bulls are still together and they can kind of be patterned a little bit because they're doing the same thing, and it's just a group of bulls in bachelor group right now that haven't started feeling their oats and haven't started separating out? Or is it that time now when the big bulls are splitting off and now these younger guys are in kind of search mode for cows because they're going to be the pseudo herd bull for a little bit and those big guys are just going to wade off in the wings? Or is it getting closer to that time now that cows are starting to more and more come into estrus? And they can come in early, trust me. But is it more and more of them are starting to come in? The ones that are really well timed as to when that estrus is happening, is that happening? And now are other bulls moving in? Is this more of a rut type happening or opportunity for it to happen? Are bulls now getting cowed up? Are they getting, do they only have 2, 3, 5 cows in that transition phase? Or is this that full rut phase now when they're going to have 20 cows? Again, thinking like with my New Mexico mentality, right? As far as that type. So, or is it, after that when now, is it that 1st of October? Is it the 11th, 12th of October now when those big bulls now they do the reverse thing and they split off from the group, letting the small guys move in and they stay in the wings again until they start hearing that a cow has come into estrus. And they know when it happens because they hear the other bulls going off, man. Let that sink in. Let that sink in that those elk, what they're listening for and why they come in. So that's why that period before the, prime rut, that transition of, the small bulls, big bulls moving in, big bulls in the wings, waiting to hear ruts happening before they move in or even after, right? When you hear about those 2 times, that pre and that little bit of post, prime times right there, prime times to make it sound like a rut is happening to bring a bull into you. Okay. All right. So what time of year is the first question? I always want to understand mode. And then the second question I ask them is what time of day was this? Okay. And the reason I'm asking that is just like you should be asking yourself when you're on a hunt and you hear an animal, you're going to ask yourself, right? Are they at a destination or going to one? Because elk moving to a destination, if they're going to be so hard to turn. You're not going to turn a bull, man. If he got cows and they're going someplace, he is going to stay back and talk with you, but then he's going to go and he's going to stay with those cows, right? Unless he has a major reason, unless those cows are cows that he has together that aren't in estrus, and now he hears one, that he hears a situation where there probably is elk in, estrus because of a rut that's going on. So I have seen that happen, and it can happen, especially if it's close to those cows' bedding area and he knows where they're going to be. He will most definitely, or they're already bedded. If they're already bedded, he is more apt to get up and leave them because he knows where they're at when he comes back. Okay. It's also important to know that at a destination or going to one, because if they're going to a destination, then not to get into the vapor and trail. You can get an opportunity by getting off and trying to parallel those critters and actually get up or beyond where they're at, or even looking at where they're possibly going. And just because they are moving to a destination doesn't mean the hunt's over. You can absolutely hunt them out of their destination. So I think those are important questions to understand anytime you're in a hunt. That should be, you should already know when you're hunting what type of mode these animals are most likely in. And then, whenever something's happening, you should be asking yourself time of day. Like I followed a group of elk. I killed a bull in 22 down in this canyon. And I followed them from where they bedded. I could see where they were browsing, watching their tracks moving in and out to the point where the tracks got streamlined, showing me that they were absolutely going someplace. And then when I came to where they went over the top and dropped into a canyon and I looked at my watch, just by knowing that it was 10 o'clock, I knew those elk were going to bed on this side of this hill. So I knew exactly what type of animal that I was working with and how to work my setup and to try to pull them out from there. Okay, critical. Okay, another thing, pressure. How animals are behaving because of pressure. So you got to ask yourself, first of all, when you're hunting in a location, are you in a high use area for the elk? Are you in a low use area? Because I'm telling you that they will act differently to pressure in those areas, because in high use areas, they're used to the scent of humans. They're used to vehicles moving. They're used to guys on horses. They're used to people, and man, in Colorado, people on bikes, people that are hiking all the time, people that are on side by sides. You know, just because those things are in the country, they can't just leave their home. They learn to adapt to that, right? And they get more used to it. Whereas in low use areas, man, if something like that happens, then it could absolutely move them one ridge over, two ridge over. It might move them into a whole different basin, right? And that's also okay. And again, this is me, but this is from everything that I've seen, that the more open the country, the more distance elk will put between themselves and pressure. And I'm gonna, I'll tell you why here in a second, because I have seen this. The thicker the country, they just don't go that far. You know, they don't have to, because it's not like they're worried about a predator being able to see them. In open country, they are a big critter and they're easy to see. And I think they really try to put distance between themselves and whatever they're seeing or hearing or smelling. Okay. But I think this all has to do going back to the whole stop and scan to verify for safety. So like when you booger a critter in open country, they can get after it because they can see what's in front of them. It's until they get to where they have to go into something thick, they're going to stop and they're going to scan for any kind of threat before they move into it. So in open country, they can cover a lot of ground and see that they're safe as they're covering it. Whereas in thicker country, they have to stop constantly to verify that this next area that they're going to. Now, if they have to, yeah, they're going to create distance, right? But that distance is until they can't, you know, see what that threat is. And they're going to stop, they're going to turn, they're going to listen, they're going to look, they're absolutely checking their nose if possible, but most likely they ran with their nose into wind, because that's the one way that as they're going through thick stuff, they can verify to make sure that there's nothing in front of them that's a threat. So a lot of times they're going to run with their nose into the wind, and then they're going to stop, they're going to turn, they're going to listen, and they're going to check their back trail. They'll stand there for, on elk time, they're going to stand there and listen and listen and listen, okay? They're going to look and look and look. If there's no threat, they're going to go back to doing what elk do, okay? So, I mean, you can booger an animal and he could just go right up on top of a ridge. And then I've seen this. I've seen where elk were wanting to come down. They were actually going to a destination, hit some hunters, get boogered, go up on the ridge, stop and listen, and then all they did was they picked routes to go around where that possible threat was to get where they wanted to go. They got there. They just changed the direction they got there. And they did it in a way so that they could identify still by using their nose, by using their ears, and by stop and scanning that everything was safe for them to move forward. So pressure is not always the same from place to place. Do not think that just because you boogered an animal that they're gone forever. They're not. If it's a place that, you know, that you have some resident cows that pattern in there, you know, they eventually are going to be right back patterning, you know, as much as possible as they did. And what I mean by patterning, they're going to use certain areas because they like certain areas to bed. They're going to use certain areas because they like certain areas to feed, right? It doesn't mean that they're going to be exactly up and down the same time, you know, like that, but they're going to come back to those areas. And elk don't eat themselves out of house and home. So they will go to different preferred areas and different preferred bedding areas near that, okay? Depending on the quality of what the feed is. The more sparse that is and the bigger the group, the more they have to move. The thicker that feed is, the less they have to move, or the smaller the group is, the less they have to move. Okay. Just remember those types of things. Okay. So, and that's the other thing too, man, is this whole thing about elk country, right? Please understand, not all elk country looks the same. I have, our buddy Dallin that was with us at Mile High. Man, this guy has video of them just blowing up bull, and they're just going nuts. And they're not a single not a single pine tree there, not a single aspen tree. The country is all sage and juniper. And bulls are just going nuts down there, and they're thriving down there. The lower country, and when I mean like lower country, I'm talking about, you get some of that pine and oak brush type country. That's that transition, between higher elevation and just flat country down there. You get in some of that transition like that. Some of my favorite places to hunt elk, man. They get so much cover. It's they get a lot of leaves on the ground that help them with noise and hearing things. It gets really thick for them to be able to hide in. They don't necessarily always go onto a north face. They don't always go into a northeast face. They get in areas where they can get shade, where they feel safe, and they can have thermal regulation. And that's another thing to always remember about elk, that they have to regulate thermally. And that's where I think a lot of times, if we were to think more in terms of us when we're thinking about their behaviors, if we were to humanize or understand how we feel about something at the time, I think that would help us a lot in understanding what they're wanting. I mean, if you're walking in September and the sun is beating out on you and you're sweating, you're like, man, I wish I had some shade. Those elk are in the shade. If you're rifle hunting in the winter and it is freezing out there and you're walking in the shadows of the trees where it's just even like 10, 15 degrees colder in there, and you're wanting to get in the sun to warm up, those elk are doing the same thing, right? So think about that, man. Think about that when you're trying to decide on where you're going to find animals, okay? So don't peg a certain thing as being elk country. They're needing food, they're needing security, and they're needing water, right? They can travel a lot farther for the water. And most of the time they're looking for that food and that security. It's going to be a little bit more closer to each other. And they can drink nocturnally, and they will drink nocturnally. They'll travel to be able to do that. And they feel safer in the dark because y'all don't hunt at night, right? So they're more comfortable at doing a lot of things in the evening, okay? That's another thing. So when I talk about pressure, people ask me like, how do you hunt an area that's got a lot of pressure? Well, I hunt it when the times when there's not. I'm there in the dark so I can be on animals first thing in the morning, midday when everybody's in camp, and I'm there until dark when most people have already gotten back to camp because they feel insecure, or there's some kind of fear, or they don't want to get caught in the dark, right? So I really am after animals those times when most people aren't, when the pressure disappears, okay? So some hunter behaviors that I think hurt success. Number one is overthinking things, right? When you have an animal that does respond, let's say, you're trying to, really overthink too much on, well, what should I do? Should I set up? Should I do this? And, depending on what that distance sounds like to that animal, if that sounds anything at a distance, man, I am checking the wind, taking an angle, and cutting the distance immediately, especially on public land, right? Private land, I have a little bit more option to do things, but on public land, which has been when I talk about the animals I've taken, that's all been public land. Generally, because as a guide, I've had to hunt the first 5 days of the season, generally early season as well. So when I hear that, I am checking the wind, I'm verifying the terrain, and I'm taking an angle and cutting the distance, right? And you know, when I talk about verify the terrain, you know, the thicker the terrain, the faster I can go because it's going to be harder. He can hear me, but he doesn't know that's not another elk coming to him, right? I just want to make sure he can't see me. So I got to kind of know when to speed up and slow down. And I am going to use my stop and scan as well. And I'm going to stop and listen for things as I'm cutting that distance, because him hearing me and thick stuff, he might hear that and actually start coming to me because he thinks that that's an elk that's coming to him. There's a lot of things that can happen there. So sometimes the best elk call is not even making a sound with a diaphragm. Sometimes it's just, you know, making those sounds of an elk moving through the woods. I've had elk bugle at me because I broke a branch or rolled a rock, and they were like, oh, there he is, and they were like, here I am, right? Okay, so the overthinking, man, don't overthink it. You know, make sure, and I'm a very aggressive elk hunter. Okay, and that's not means I'm challenging. It means I'm aggressive in my movements. I'm aggressive that I call a lot when I do that in certain situations, or I'm always basically creating some type of scenario. All right. Also, another one of the biggest problems with most hunters is that they're bullheaded. I hear this all the time about me from my wife. Well, what I mean by that is they're playing to bulls all the time. They have that male mentality that the bull elk are, they're the ones in control of everything. All right. And that's not the case, man. What you got to be thinking about, especially, you know, now later on, rifle hunters, as bulls split off, yes, now you got to think about what a bull is doing, how he doesn't want to be near a herd, especially the big bulls, and what he needs as far as recovery goes, right? But when you're talking about the rut, you better start asking yourself, what are the cows doing? Where are they, and why would they be there? And once you figure that out, you find them, you find the bulls. You know, build it, they will come. And that's exactly how it is. Think with the cow mentality. You have a bull that's moving off, you know, that you're like, oh, he must have cows, so he's running away from me. No, he's not. He is now just following his cows, man. And the cows have a destination. Most likely they're going to bed. Okay, so you just got to think about those types of things and keep that in mind. Oh, and here's the other thing. I think another big mistake is if they are playing towards a bull, a lot of times they give away their size. And what I mean by that is when you bugle and you add things to that, you know, bugle, you are actually kind of by voice letting another bull know how big you are. Okay. And I think sometimes that's why bulls come in silently. They come in silently because they want to measure up the competition. They want to verify, you know, visually that they're not going to get their butts kicked. So I really like to use a lot of sounds, especially early on, that don't give away my size. I mean, if I'm raking, they have no idea how big I am. If I'm glunking, or if I'm panting, or if I'm chuckling, you know, they have zero idea how big I am. So if I'm using environmental sounds, you know, besides the raking or with the rocks rolling, you know, things like that. If I'm Chavez even goes as far as he likes to go and pull leaves off of a branch, you know, so that elk can hear that. I mean, they have a different kind of tree, you know, than we do a lot of times in the woods. Most of our elk are going to be grazing, but you can actually, I mean, he would probably start pulling grass off the ground to give that sound. And I've even heard people pouring water out of their bottle to make it sound like an elk urinating, doing sounds that these elk hear in the natural world that we never, you know, learn to use. So especially if I like have a bull that is hanging up, or he's telling a cow to come to him and I'm trying to give a reason why that cow's not, I will introduce a bull into situation. But I never introduce that bull by giving a vocal voice to him. I'll start raking, or I'll start doing some pants and whines, those types of things, so that a bull knows that there's another bull there and he's maybe frustrated and he, wants to breed a cow or something like that, but he can't tell how big he is. All right. So I think that once you change your mentality to the cows and how the cows are reacting to the bulls around them and how they're reacting at that time of year and where they're going and what they're doing, then I think you'll be better off. And remember too, cows have a pecking order as well, because I've seen guys go in on a herd and they start cow calling on that and not realizing, and I talk with Mark Carlton about this all the time, that those cows don't want a lot of time to have to go through a new battle of pecking order, and they'll actually push the herd off. That's why I think sometimes calf calls are very underused, and I think they're very, very effective. Okay. Another behavior that I think hurts success is waiting as a hunter at destinations or hunting destinations instead of hunting transitions. And what I mean by that, first thing in the morning, you have elk in the field. Well, cool. But they're only going to be there so long, and then they're going to start going into transition. Now, if you're there early enough and you're in the right situation, it can be bonkers, man. It can be just great. But if you have elk starting to hit the trees, or if you're in a situation where you're up on a ridge and you hear animals down below, you don't want to go down to where they're going to be leaving. You want to go to where they'll be transitioning through. So keep that in mind, right? And if you're wondering what that direction will be, pay attention to the wind, because they're going to move so many times with the wind in their face as they start hitting the trees, right? So think about where that's coming from. That gives you an idea of where you can move to hit the area that they're transitioning through. Plus, that gives you a little bit of a head start. If they do start moving through that, heading to a destination, you weren't able to pull them to you during that transition, and then you're able to get to where they're going a little bit easier. Okay. Now, where I think this is huge is a lot of people like to wait at parks in the evening, especially in the evenings. Then they're waiting for those animals to come down. I hate that, man. I'm not a waiter. Plus, in the evening, they are going to move through transitions so much slower, right? Because they're not going to hit those openings until it's safe for them. So they're going to be browsing in those transition areas. They're going to get up out of their bed and they're going to start feeding immediately, or they're going to start moving to where their night bed and their night feeding is going to be. But they're going to take advantage of everything going within that direction. So for me, I want to be in those areas between the bedding and the feed, or those nighttime beds. Okay. Hunting way too timid, I think, is the last one. And you heard me say that I'm aggressive. Yes, my aggressiveness has blown up situations, but my aggressiveness has created so many more situations than being passive does. Okay, I really believe that aggression creates opportunities. And a lot of times that happens, again, defensively, having to react to an animal making a move in a direction that I didn't think. Look, you can get away with more than you think. More movement, more sound. That is an expectation by those critters in the right situations. And if they're seeing movement sometimes and they're not hearing sound, sometimes that can be a red flag. Or if they're, if they're hearing a sound like you cow called, and they're looking and they should see an animal there, red flag, right? So just remember that you can do things and get away with more than you think when you're moving in on an animal. I have a great story. I was with a friend of mine. I was guiding him at the time, and we had a a big herd of elk, and I mean, we're surrounded by elk, and we're moving, and we got so many cows, and the bull's up. This bull that we wanted is ahead of these group of cows. Well, people are like, well, what if you booger the cows? If I booger the cows, I'm screaming, I'm hitting a tree, I'm making other bulls think that it's just another bull that, not being very nice that caused them to booger. But we're moving through, and he's like, man, they're going to see our legs. And there's so many elk walking around there, and our legs were moving underneath the pines because it was so thick. I was like, they're not going to know it's our legs, right? And ended up shooting a beautiful bull at 38 yards. So you can take advantage of certain situations. Again, read the field, read the terrain, read the vegetation. Know when you got to slow down. Know when you can hurry up. The thicker it is, the more you can hurry. The thinner it gets, the more you have to slow down. The closer you get, the more you have to slow. You got to use that stop and scan. All of these things to be able to help yourself out. Okay, so that's it for this session of Solo with Coach. I hope you got a little bit of something out of this. I'm sorry you had to wait for this to happen. When I thought I was going to record this the last time, again, life hit me. I got up getting ready to record. Our heater went on, and our house smelled like death because somehow or another, a rat got into our duct system, and that created a whole day of not doing what I thought I was going to be able to do and having to deal with that problem. And I can tell you this, there's a lot of times I want to go back and smack my 25-year-old self, and that was one of those days because I was like, dude, why couldn't you have made the crawl space any bigger than this? Oh my gosh, man. When you're underneath the house and you only got 1.5 feet and 2 foot of crawl space in those areas, and it gets a little claustrophobic. So it kept me from doing what I wanted to be able to do, but here I am. We got her done, and I hope you're going to get something from this, y'all. Hope to see some of y'all at the Western Hunt Fest. Oh, and man, I think we have 5 positions left. I think we have 5 memberships left for our first block of 32 in our adventure club. And as soon as those 5, I think we do a 1 out of 32. Yeah, it's 1 out of 32. We are getting ready as soon as that 5th person, that the 5th membership goes, we're getting ready to select one person that's going to come on a $10,000 elk hunt with us. And you don't know how excited that makes me to think that somebody, one of our grinders, is going to be able to come hunt with us on a $10,000 elk hunt for $325 plus their license. Man, you don't know how happy that makes my heart, man. I'm looking so forward to it. If you don't know about the ElkBros Adventure Club, go to elkbrosadventures.com and check it out, because for every 32 members that we get in that, somebody's going to win an elk hunt, and they're going to be able to get so much more out of that. Check it out and see what you think. Oh, so until then, and we will do that live. We're going to do that first selection live, so you're going to be able to see that. So until the next time, y'all, keep believing and achieving. Keep dreaming of the screaming. But most of all, keep grinding. See y'all again next time. Peace, peace.
Where others' fear is home to me. No boundaries for my soul. The pounding, the primal blood, driving hunger like no other, running through my veins. No man versus nature, only me versus me. A centuries old challenge, raging deep inside my soul. No anger, malice or evil, only a hunter and his prey. This is my life, country born and raised. When that whistle blows, I'm on the trail, pounding in my head. There's a will, there's a way, there's a way, there's a way. This is my life, I know it's my day, my life. Don't think you know me, my life, no odds will own me, my destiny, my way. every scent, knowing with every breeze. The trail before me, the fire burning inside me. This is what we live for, honor, passion, and pain. This is my life, grinder born and raised. When that whistle blows, I'm on the trail, pounding in my head. There's a will, there's a way, there's a way, there's a way. This is my life, I know it's my day, my life. Don't think you know me, my life, no odds will own me, my destiny, my way. This is my life, runner born and raised. When that whistle blows, I'm on the trail, pounding in my head. There's a will, there's a way, there's a way, there's a way. This is my life, I know it's my day, my life. Don't think you know me, my life, no odds will own me, my destiny, my way.